well, we say, "Hey, what's the fastest way to make money in real estate?" Everybody's going to say wholesaling. And I don't agree with that. Wholesaling could take upwards of 3 to 4 weeks before you actually receive a check from the closing. Unfortunately, around 80% of the market can't go to the bank and qualify for a regular bank loan. So a lease option is a perfect scenario for the 80% of the population that can't go, that are not currently bank qualified. You got to find a seller that's willing to wait, and as far as taking payments over time. That's the number one criteria is finding a seller that's willing to accept your terms. And then once you find the seller that accepts your terms, you're never going to have a problem finding a tenant buyer to buy that property from you on a lease option. Because like I said, 80% of the population can't go to the bank right now and get a traditional mortgage. So you're never going to have a problem selling the lease option, but finding the lease option seller, that becomes a little bit more of a challenge.
Thank you very much. This is 305 Office, your podcast for business intelligence. Thank you very much. Eric Sandhaus is with us today because don't forget, I'm going to take only 10 seconds of your time to tell you that only 20% of people that are connected to this podcast or whatever in Spotify and YouTube or whatever platform, only 20% of people subscribe and make and hit the like button for this platform, and that means a lot because we're gonna keep growing and having the best content and everything related to business intelligence in this 305 podcast. Thank you very much. And now we don't forget that we're here because of Zoho, your CRM, details in the descriptions below, and Wise, your payments, details in the description as well. So we're hearing, thank you very much, Mr. Eric Sandhaus. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Great. So we're hearing more and more in this environment of changes, risks, and everything that's going on. So investing, we are talking right now. This podcast is going to be about the creative structures in these markets, also the lease option. I understand JV partnership. Right now, you are focus on real estate investment strategies, creative strategies on that. Tell me and our audience more about that, Eric.
So we always recommend when buying creative strategies, whether you're buying on owner financing or buying subject to or buying lease options, we always recommend when you sell the property that you sell it on a lease option. That way you can control the property, you still have control of the deed, and then you pass on the responsibilities of the maintenance and repairs to the tenant buyer. So there's lots of benefits of doing a lease option. You can still own the property, so you get the depreciation, the depreciation as well. So there's very different varieties of reasons why a lease option in this market is always good. It's always been good, and it will continue to be good moving forward. Unfortunately, around 80% of the market can't go to the bank and qualify for a regular bank loan. So a lease option is a perfect scenario for the 80% of the population that can't go, that are not currently bank qualified.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. The financing, being qualified, and also in this market, 2026, Eric, and sometimes, I have as a realtor here in Miami, I have many inquiries about this kind of lease options, and they're really the owners are not so maybe there's not so much information about this, and we're gonna we wanna spread this information and how it works, and also the mistakes. When we think about those lease options, what are the main requirements as an owner and as a person that is interested? Because what I see here in the market, in the Florida market right now, it's mostly single on lease option right now. But the side of multi-family and medium investors, that's another story. But when we talk, going back to the main question, the requirement side of when I have, for example, a property, to put it on lease option, what are my main requirements?
Well, main requirements when you're buying on a lease option. So there's two different things. So when we buy on a lease option from the seller, we don't own the property. We're just leasing the property, and then we're doing what we call a sandwich lease option, a master lease, where we have a lease with the seller and an option with the seller, and then we're turning around and selling it to a tenant buyer. So then there's the scenario where you buy the property, whether you buy it cash or you buy it owner financing or buy it subject to, and turn around and use your exit strategy as a lease option. So the main criteria is you're looking for is cash flow mostly. You're buying these for cash flow, as well as you're getting paid three different ways. You're getting paid up front as a non-refundable option fee. You're getting paid on the cash flow, on the difference between the monthly payment of whatever you agree with the seller and the monthly rent, what you can rent it for. And then you're getting paid again on the back end when they cash you out on the difference of the pay down of the mortgage. So you're getting paid 3 different times, sometimes 4 different times on lease options. Now, a lot of the mistakes that I see people doing is they're making them with the lease talks about the option. There needs to be 2 separate documents, and the lease needs to be strictly a lease that is a 1-year renewables upwards of 3 years, because we usually give them a 3-year option. So the lease never talks about the option. Then there's the option document, and the option document refers to the lease, to where if you break your lease or if you default in your lease, you lose your option. And we always call it a non-refundable option fee, because they're typically going to give us anywhere from 5 to 20% of the purchase price as a non-refundable option fee for taking our house off the market. So that option fee is spendable cash as soon as we collect it. And the main point I was trying to get at is, when we structure it this way, that the buyer, hold on, I forgot my thought. Sorry, apologize. Um, um, so
Yeah, also having creating the environment
oh yeah,
legally.
back to the 2 documents, right? That's what I was talking about.
Mm,
So the first
exactly.
document is the lease. The second document is the option agreement. The option refers to the lease, to where if you default on the lease, you lose your option. What I was talking about was a non-refundable option fee. We never want to call it a down payment. We never want to call it a deposit, because if you call it a down payment or a deposit, you would then get in the situation where if the person goes and stops making payments on the lease, right? And they go to the judge, and because we're going to evict them because they stopped making payments on their lease, so we can evict them as a tenant. They're not an actual buyer yet, right? So they haven't exercised their option. They go to the
Exactly.
judge, and they all of a sudden say, "Judge, I thought I was buying this property. I gave them a down payment, or I gave them a deposit." There's nowhere in our paperwork that says the word deposit or down payment. It's a non-refundable option.
Eric, right now, as investors, or let's say, uh, low, medium size investors, not the big dogs. Not talking about big dogs, Eric.
What?
Medium, low and medium size investors. Say, talking about a single, multifamily. That's you as a expert on that side, your JV, your JV partnership and so on. I have, for example, I have clients interested in acquire a property. That's how's the market right now? It's plenty of options, or is not too crowded right now, or there's plenty of options right now.
There's plenty of deals to be had. Lease option is the number one deal that you can literally, for example, if you were to come on one of our Saturday Zoom meetings that we put on, which if you go to jvpartnership.com, you can get access to that.
Perfect.
And what we do is we actually, there's many deals to be had right now. And the reason for that is because the 2020, 2021, 2022 people during the COVID times that got low interest rate mortgages, unfortunately are defaulting on their mortgages because they either lost their jobs, they were working in the food industry, or there's different reasons why they've now 5 years later have now started to default on them. So what we call it the low hanging fruit. So we go after those low hanging fruit mortgages, and then we buy them subject to, and then we turn around and put them out on a lease option. So there's plenty of deals to be had right now, because of the market and the shifting of what's going on. And the interest rates, they have come down a little bit just recently, but they had been
We're
quite high.
talking, Eric. We're talking Florida.
Yes.
Perfect. All
Yeah,
right. All
I
right.
live in Central Florida. I live in Orlando, so mostly my investing is done in Orlando. But we do have JV partnership members that are all over the country, so we do all that as well. We also have a trustee service, so we provide land trust for people, and we do
So
land.
you have like an MLS, like an MLS something, for lease option, to understand more about that, because I mean, right now, Eric, I am with a team here in Miami, and when I talk with them about lease options, they say, and well, mostly like single family right now on these options, but multifamily, the multifamily one, you have, yeah, you have options, for multifamily right now,
So what we
on
see with the multifamily deals, those are usually bought on owner financing, not necessarily lease options. And we
uh-huh.
always recommend not to necessarily, like as an investor, you don't want to buy on a lease option because you don't get control of the deed. When you buy on owner financing or you
Mm.
buy subject to, you get the deed. So you don't want to have to worry about 5 years down the road if you do a lease option with a seller and you have to then chase them down to get the deed signed, right? So we want to preferably always sell on a lease option so that we can control the deed. But when we buy properties, we want to buy on owner financing or we want to buy on subject to, as far as the creative financing world. Obviously, if it's a cash deal, that's a different story. But as far as the creative financing, if we have to, the last option we will do is a lease option with the seller, but we prefer not to do that because we would have to chase them, possibly 3 to 5 years down the road to get a deed signed when our tenant buyer is ready to cash us out. But as far as the multifamily deals, we see those being sold on owner financing a lot because the seller has bought those properties for $300,000, 10, 20, 30 years ago, and now they're selling them for 2 million. So they have a big tax problem, right? So to stretch out that tax problem, they sell these properties on owner financing. I don't see too much in the commercial world doing lease
so
options.
we're So we're talking about, a real tax incentive on that side of creative financing, right?
When the seller sells the property on owner financing, it eliminates the burden of the big tax bill that they're going to receive because most likely they bought the property for much less than what they're selling it today. Like say, for example, like I said, 300,000 to 400,000 20 years ago, and now they're selling it for 2 million. Right? That's a big tax problem. So maybe they get $200,000 to $300,000 as a down payment on owner financing, right? On owner financing, we can call it a down payment because that's what it is, right? And then they take that other 1.7 million, 1.8 million, whatever it is, the balance, and do owner financing with maybe a 5-year balloon or a 7-year balloon, and then get paid out at that time. But they stretch out that tax problem with doing the owner financing strategy.
On the side of, when, commercial, residential, both, are more likely to be in the market right now, as your experience, Eric? What's the most that you're seeing right now between commercial and residential?
We're seeing a little bit of both. As far as residential, we're seeing a lot more subject twos. I mean, we're seeing an influx of subject twos because of all the pre foreclosures that are out there right now. So there are people that are bringing the loans current and taking over the payments of the sellers. And as far as the multifamily and the commercial world, we're seeing a lot of owner financing being done because these, like I said, these people bought them 20, 30 years ago and they don't want to sell them for cash because they're gonna pay 30, 40, 50% of tax to Uncle Sam.
That's right. That's right. And also, there when on the side of institutional investors, those big corporations, what do you see about those people or those institutions using the lease options? Are they likely to use them as well?
They are. There are some companies out there that are strictly, well, they'll actually say, go find a house, we'll buy it for you, and then do a rent to own lease option for you. So like there's quite a few companies out there that I've seen. I couldn't name them off the top of my head, but I've seen them where they'll actually go out and say, "Go find a house, we'll buy it cash for you, and then we'll sell it to you on a lease option." So there is some bigger companies doing this on a bigger scale, but you got to be careful and make sure that you're dealing with the right company. Because just because they're a big company doesn't mean they're a legitimate company.
Exactly. Yeah, and also the talking about the best kind of property to work with this structure for you and in your experience, what's the best kind of property?
For a lease option would be a single family house.
Single
Now
family.
you can do a lease option on a commercial property, but most of the time those are done on owner financing. Why the difference? Most likely is because when you're buying a bigger piece of property, it's a multifamily, it's a 20 unit, it's a 50 unit, it's a mobile home park where there's 30, 40, 50 units, and you're putting a lot of money into this property. So you want to control the deed. You don't want to buy that large asset on a lease option where you don't have control of the actual property.
Right. Also, when can you tell me more about the controlling the deed side of the legal requirement of the legal strategy? Can you tell me more about that, and for the audience that is not so familiar, and you have been talking about this controlling about
Yeah.
controlling the leasing.
So when you buy on owner financing, the deed is transferred from the seller, which is the grantor, to the buyer, which is
Yeah, and it's gonna be the Florida case, because in other states it's gonna be another case, because it's depending on the state.
well, yes and no. So there's mortgage
Yes
state,
and no.
there's mortgage states and there's deed of trust states. But either way, owner financing is still the same. You get control of the deed. The deed transfers from the seller to the new buyer. Same with the subject to. When you buy it on subject to, the deed transfers from the seller to the new buyer. Usually it's a land trust. So then the trustee becomes the new legal owner on the deed. When you do a lease option, all you're doing is creating a lease with an option to buy. You're not getting control of the deed. You don't own the property yet. You don't own the property until you exercise your option and fulfill that option and pay off the seller, and now you get control of the deed. So that's why we always say
what
we
are
rec
mm,
go ahead.
Eric, and what are the main questions that people that talking and interested on investing on with these creative strategies, they just come to you and they ask you, what are those main questions and doubts of those who are interested on doing those kind of deals.
So as far as people that are interested in doing those type of deals,
Aha, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So when people come to us and we say, "Hey, what's the fastest way to make money in real estate?" Everybody's going to say wholesaling. And I don't agree with that. Wholesaling could take upwards of 3 to 4 weeks before you actually receive a check from the closing, because the seller, or nobody's going to, or the wholesaler is not going to pay you any money until the deal actually closes. But you can literally go out right now on Zillow, call for sale by owners, call them up and do a lease option with them, and turn around and find a lease option buyer the next day, collect a non-refundable option fee, and literally get paid within the few days time. So in my opinion, lease options is the fastest way to make money in real estate.
You can, Eric, you can turn a cash offer into a lease option, or is very difficult to, or it depends on your strategy as a buyer.
So typically we actually give the seller 3 different options. We'll give them a low cash offer. We'll give them a lease option type of offer, and then we'll give them an owner financing type of offer, or a subject to type of offer, right? So if we give them a cash offer, it's usually a discounted price. It's not going to be fair market value, right? So it's going to be discounted. But if we do a lease option, we can pay, and they're asking 400,000 for the property, we can pay them the 400,000. In return, they have to give us terms for the property, so which is lease option. So we pay them over time. It's basically a delayed cash closing.
So you have cases where you turn the seller, the cash seller, because you see in MLS or Zillow many cash sellers. You have cases where you turn this cash seller into a lease option seller.
Yes, specifically when the property's been on the market for 90 to 100 plus
Many
days, right? So
psychology.
they're stuck on the price. That's the only reason why the property hasn't sold yet. So
Mm,
you give them their price, they give you terms in return. So it's
right.
basically dangling the carrot in front of them, because the property would have sold within 30 days if they adjusted the price correctly. And if they're a cash seller, then they usually don't need the cash. They just want that price. They want to be able to say, I sold my property for 400,000 or 500,000. They don't care. It takes them 5 months to do it. They just want to be able to say, I sold my property for this much value. They don't really need the cash now. So what we do is we structure a delayed cash closing by doing either owner financing or lease option. And then eventually they get their chunk of cash down the road.
So, Eric, what percentage of your pipeline is now creative financing?
Basically all of our deals are creative financing. For example, we're under contract right now in Virginia to buy 4 mobile home parks on owner financing. It's a portfolio of mobile home parks. We're primarily focused on subject to deals right now and mobile home parks. So those are our main buying strategies right now, as far as what we've been focusing on. But we've got JV partners that are doing a little bit of everything: fixing and flipping, lease options, owner financing, mobile home parks. We're going to get involved in self-storage as well.
What is the first step if if I want to invest in a lease option deal? I am very interested. What's the first step that I have to do to get into a deal like that?
Well, you got to find a seller that's willing to wait, and as far as taking payments over time. So that's the number one criteria, is finding a seller that's willing to accept your terms. And then once you find the seller that accepts your terms, you're never going to have a problem finding a tenant buyer to buy that property from you on a lease option. Because like I said, 80% of the population can't go to the bank right now and get a traditional mortgage. So you're never going to have a problem selling the lease option, but finding the lease option seller, that becomes a little bit more of a challenge. It's just a
There
matter of how much marketing you're doing to find them.
Eric, there's a tool that you're using right now, a tool for that strategy to find sellers for that, or you just do the regular MLS.
So we do cold calling as well, and then I also have a paid advertising campaign we're about to start back up. We were doing a few years ago. We're about to start it back up on Facebook, where I have a Facebook page. It's called Eric Buys Houses, and basically we'll do paid advertising on there and find different sellers that are in different scenarios. But direct mail works as just as good. But just getting on the phone and going to Zillow and calling for sale by owners, that's the fastest way you can find leads. Because these are sellers that are telling you they don't want to deal with a realtor, or maybe they were with a realtor for 6 months and the realtor couldn't sell their property. And now you come along, give them their price, and they're excited about that because they haven't sold their property in 6 months with the realtor. So now you come along and offer them the terms, and they're more acceptable to it because they haven't been able to sell their property.
Right. And also in your perspective, what's gonna be the grow the potential of growing about the lease options, and also in allocations of capital, when you talk to a regular Joe, and they wanna allocate some capital in real estate. What's gonna be your take, your best advice when we're talking about allocation? How's gonna be the percentage of capital allocation in real estate when you talk with a regular person, not a company, not an institution?
So as far as how much money they would need to get involved in a deal,
Is with talking about how much, that's important, and how it's gonna look like the investment on the side of the capital that I have. Let's say I have $40,000 on my savings, for example.
yeah.
And then you say, oh, what is your perspective on the side of the capital that I have? What's the percentage that I should that I should just use for a certain deal
Well,
of the total of a capital?
well, it all depends on how much you're willing to put at risk, but every deal is going to be different. So for example, let's just say we have a subject to deal, and that the seller's behind $20,000 on payments, but they have equity, so you need to give them a little bit of equity. Let's say 20,000. Let's say you want to assign the property for 20,000, right? So you technically need 40,000 to bring the loan current and pay the seller, and then you want to assign it to somebody and make 20,000. So
The most cases when we talk lease options, it's gonna be 20 to 40%, or it depends on the
well,
case.
depends on the deal. As far as the lease option, when we're buying on a lease option, it all depends on how much the seller has in equity, how much lease down non-refundable option fee they're willing to accept, right? So typically we try to buy lease options with no money down when we're buying a lease option. But when we sell a lease option, right, to a tenant buyer, we want to collect at least 5 to 20% of the sales price as a non-refundable option fee. So for an investor that has 40,000 in their savings account, that may be enough money, because let's just say you go to a seller and they are selling the property for 300,000 and they only need 20,000 as a non-refundable down payment or an option fee, right? Now you have that 20,000, but you can even do this with no money, right? So for example, you find a seller that's willing to sell their property on a lease option, right? And their requirement is $10,000 as a down payment or a non-refundable option fee, right? Then you go
when
out
when
and
uh,
you
mm,
put the property under contract, and you go find a tenant buyer that has 20 or $30,000 as a non-refundable option fee. Out of that 20, 30,000 that you collect from them, you give the 10,000 to the seller, and now you collect the difference, and now you've got a property where you didn't put up any money of your own.
right. Also, uh, when Eric, these times of right now, people, uh, you know what's happening. It's a war. It's a war right now. There is some kind of movements in the market, uh, mm, in terms of the these creative options for acquiring a property. You have when, for example, I have a client. You have you can have a property tomorrow to offer to this client
So as
for
far as
for
the
for
lease
for that,
option,
with lease option.
I don't have one currently, but I have other clients
Mhm.
that I know of that have active lease options out there in the market. Yes, I don't currently have any.
Okay.
I don't have any
Okay.
currently available myself, but we're always looking at acquiring new properties. So, I could get a phone call later this afternoon and someone has a deal for me. And next thing you know, I go to contract. But like I said, right
And
now
that's
we're,
great.
yeah.
Yeah. Eric, and that's great. If you have like those contact, because actually, we have a community. 305 office is like a community. It's a website, and
Okay.
and we got many clients, and maybe if a person or company is selling lease options, we can also have those contacts as well to offer in our community as well. I think
Yes.
it can be a good deal for every part of those. And also with the new economy, the new era, AI, and let's say AI, and all the we have this in this podcast, and finishing, because we are out of time right now. But this in this time of changes, Eric, um we got the question in this podcast. You answer the question, or you don't. We have this question because it's like a tradition. Do you own Bitcoin, Eric?
Not at the moment. No.
Not at the moment. Perfect. Also, that's one of the questions. It's a changing market. It's a changing strategy
I
with
used to, I used to
eh,
own
we
it,
got
but not anymore.
ah we got sometimes many contracts with Ethereum, and all the new strategies with the new economy. There's people and experts that are talking about that, they're talking that they're telling us that mm, the US is losing the status as a currency, as a main currency all over the world. This status. What do you think about this in terms of investing in the U.S. and having some strategies right now with this environment?
So, I mean, crypto eventually, and in my opinion, is a good investment. It's just a matter of getting in at the right time and make sure that you secure it correctly. I've seen people buy properties with Bitcoin. Actually remember one of my friends back in, I don't know, I think it was 2018 or 2019, was one of the first people to do a transaction in Miami and bought a condo with Bitcoin. It was a Bitcoin to Bitcoin transaction. So he bought it was like $200,000 or $300,000 condo all with Bitcoin.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting, and that's a game changer as well. And also, we really appreciate you to be able to be here in our podcast, Eric. Last comment for our audience, that you wanna them to considerate.
If you're going to be an investor, just make sure you take it seriously and don't treat it as a hobby. There are plenty of deals out there. It's just a matter of making the calls and doing the marketing. There's plenty of ways to make money in real estate without money or credit. So it's just, specifically lease options doesn't require any money or credit to do a lease option.
Okay, Eric, thank you very much again and have a wonderful day, okay?
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too.